So the question right now should be, should I buy or should I rent? With mortgage rates being a little higher than they were last year, people are hesitant, to buy or sell as far as that goes. But some people are just holding off and not knowing what they should do. Interest rates are a little higher than they were last year, but compared to October of 1981, interest rates were 18.63%. So our 6% interest that we have going on right now is really a low interest rate. It really is low. It's not like 2% like we had a while back. I'm Margaret Herdt with Turnkey Realty. Today I'm with Dr. Frank Smith. Dr. Frank Smith is a financial advisor with JVA Management. So Frank, take it away here. Should we buy? Should people buy? Or should they rent?
Okay, I'm going to give you a singular calculation at the end.
Give it to
that you can use, but there's a lot of things to think about between here and then,
Okay.
to be honest with you. I mean, there's pluses and minuses. I think the biggest plus is to keep in mind in our business, when we talk to people that are nearing retirement, the value of the equity in their home for many people represents 60% of all of the wealth they have. So if you don't get a home, you're very likely to not have that. And I think it will, generally speaking, put you in a different class. So there are other shorter term considerations to think about.
So one thing, a lot of millennials are renting right now.
Yep.
There are ways to get into a home.
Mm-hmm.
There are low down payments
Mm-hmm.
that you can get into. There are CHAPA loans. There are all different kinds of loans
Mm-hmm.
that can help you as a millennial. This is a great time for you to buy a house
Mm-hmm.
because 60% of your wealth, if you keep paying on that over time, you're going to have a lot more wealth than somebody that's rented all of their life. So get started on that.
Well, even if you move from this house to another house to another house,
Still have
you're
a-
in the game.
Yes.
If you don't have a house, you're not in the game. And as the houses grow at 3-4% a year, you tend to fall further behind down the road.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm happy about. Both my kids have a house now, and I know.
Something that, I think about right now is, especially the millennials or first-time home buyers, they're going to buy a smaller home. That's what you can afford. But then over time, you have children, you need a bigger house, you increase that, and pretty soon you have a bigger house than that because your wealth has grown. But once you get to that, my age, Frank's age, we're going to be downsizing. And so we're going to have a lot of equity in those homes that we're going to be able to sell and go down to a first-time home buyer house. So that's something to think about too. That equity really does play a big part in financial wealth.
Right, and there's only a couple of things that can be a downside to a home. Down markets, I think we all were concerned about that a year or two ago.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we'd gone up so fast. But when you actually look at it, houses are rising again.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think they're going to fall at all.
In the state of Colorado, it's never a bad time to buy a house.
That's true. This is a great place to live.
Our equity, it's constantly growing.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, there are some concerns like that, mobility and so forth out there. There's upkeep on the home and all the rest. But you raised a really good point, I think, at the end of the PMI video, which is when you own a home, you can make the kitchen whatever color you want. You can add on to the garage. You can make the yard whatever it is you want. You can't do that when you rent.
No.
And so you have a lot of flexibility in that's really helpful. So let me get to the dollar rule so we can get that out of the way, and then if there's any other things we can talk about. There's maintenance costs and the money is stuck in the house and so forth out there. So the powers that be have come up to what they call the 5% rule. And the 5% rule says if you take the current value of a home, multiply by 5%, and divide that by 12 months, that's kind of the break even for renting versus buying. As an example, if we had a $600,000 house, the 5% rule would mean we had 30 grand. And 1/12 of that is 2,500. So in theory, ignoring all the other possibilities, if you could rent a home for less than 2,500, you would be better off. As opposed to buying a home. But the reality is the payments grow for rent relative to buying. The taxes, overall your payment tends to be lower through time by buying. But it is kind of a rough rule out there. And I think if you actually looked at homes out there, you could see that basically for a $2,500 a month payment right now, you're looking at a $600,000, $700,000 house.
Right.
And there's a lot of, I've seen apartments for $2,200 around here.
Exactly.
So,
I think the average rent cost in Fort Collins, Colorado is around $2,500.
and I'll tell you what, most of them have a 98% rent rate, so that it's not going down anytime soon.
So something else to consider with that, when you rent versus own, when you rent, in the state of Colorado, the landlord can raise your rent one time each year. So, and you know that they're going to. So if I own a home, my payment, if I have a fixed payment, a fixed type loan, my payment's gonna stay the same this year, next year, the year after, except for insurance and taxes. But when you rent, you know that your payment is gonna have to go up because the landlord is gonna raise the rent.
Well, I've got a nice house here that I bought, 8 or 10 years ago. I pay $1,800 a month. I could probably rent it for $3,500 a month.
You probably should.
So that, you stay in that fixed payment game as well, and that's really helpful.
Yeah, and a lot of people are doing investment properties, and that is another way to gain wealth. Well, but when you own versus rent, you can expense things out towards your taxes. So you can.
No, you can write off
the
expenses that you have for the local taxes or real estate taxes. Exactly. You can actually the interest expense. It helps you itemize, and I got a flyer on this the other day, and it's true though, as interest rates have gone up, so has the interest expense, and that actually allows you to itemize now on your taxes that you could not have done a couple of years ago. I can't do on mine, and that means that other expenses you have, like gifts to charity and things like that, start to become more valuable to you.
Right. If you have a rental property, you can write off, all the repairs. I mean, so there's a lot of things you can do, if you're a homeowner or an investor, that you're not able to do as a renter.
Agreed.
So Frank, tell me, do you want to own or do you want to rent?
I actually like owning, and for people who have issues with large amounts of money that they're going to pay taxes on, that's another great way you can put money aside that you don't have to pay year after year, which is I encourage my wealthier clients to invest in real estate so that the money is there and it's growing, but they don't have to pay Uncle Sam on it every year.
Well, I definitely own. I'm a real estate agent in northern Colorado. I own. Frank, you own. We both recommend owning.
Agreed.
If you need any additional information about purchasing a home in northern Colorado or Colorado in general, if you need financial advice, Frank and I are here to help you over the humps and bumps, buying real estate or investing. So our information is below if you need to get in contact with us. And so we look forward to hearing from you. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.